Bassmaster Open on Sam Rayburn is canceled now, day 1 and day 3, which means today is the only day they're going out. Now, what are the problems with that? Now, this isn't a knock on bass or anything. I'm just telling you what happens when this all goes down. There's quite a few things at play here. So let's start off. One, no one wins. Bass doesn't win. The anglers don't win. People are upset. People are happy you did it. People are mad that you did. Like it's a lose-lose all the way around. So it's never a good thing. Now, I've always been a guy who's always said, man, you're always taking a risk when you come down here to Rayburn and put a tournament on Rayburn in like January and February. I mean, yeah, it can happen any other time, but it's usually, the wind's usually bad down here this time of the year, and it's usually cold. And so I know they have to put them somewhere in the south, and people just love to fish in January and February, which is weird because those are like the 2 months of the year I don't like to fish. Like all the other times of the year is great, but that's beside the point. Fishing, they usually can catch them pretty good, so I guess that's why they come. That's beside the point. They come down here because they got to get it on the schedule, and they got to get somewhere where they can at least have it where the lakes aren't just like 30 degrees. Now, here's the problem. The wind on Rayburn was blowing yesterday. Now, I wasn't out there, but I fished a lot of tournaments in my lifetime on Rayburn. Back in the day, we used to go. I mean, we used to go in some nasty stuff. And the only ones we almost never went in if it was a northwest wind. Northwest wind, and the only reason the northwest wind is bad is this. The way Rayburn's set up and the way takeoff is, it is on the very southeast part of the lake. And so a northwest wind comes all the way down the lake and creates giant swells. Now, the problem is you have to take off from there. So no matter what happens, you have to get out there in it. Like the tournament is forcing you to get out there in the waves, right? If you have it. A north wind is bad, but it's not as bad. If you look on the map, the lake is like I said, going northwest to southeast. When it comes out of the north, yes, there's still some open water there, but it's usually not that bad. I mean, it's bad, but we're all used to it. We are. And so we used to go in north winds all the time. It was never a big deal. Now, things have changed. And this is the part that we're never going to get back. We're never going to get back. And we've had too many accidents. There's too much insurance involved. Too much liability. There is. And it's all on bass. And so they look at that and go, it takes one person doing something. It might not even be something dumb, but something happens and bass is going to take the heat. And I mean, I understand it, but here's the problem. Now we're canceling days a lot, a whole bunch. So yes, yesterday was bad winds that you're actually going to have to go get out in. The problem is, like, have to get out in. I want to make that clear. To go fishing, you literally have to leave there and get out in the rough water to go anywhere. Unless all 200 and something guys fish like right there, like right around takeoff, which is, I mean, you can't even hardly put 200 people right there. So you're going to have to go get in it. The problem is Saturday is a southwest wind. Now they're talking about storms and all these things, but I mean, I've got people texting me right now. The southwest wind is the best wind. Like if it's blowing from the southwest on Rayburn and I wanted to go fun fishing that day, I'm going. I don't care if it's blowing 50. It's not bad. There's like 4 or 5 ramps you can put in. You can drive from one end of the lake to the other and never even see a whitecap. You can drive 80 the whole way. It does not matter. My boat doesn't go 80. Most people don't. What I'm saying is you can drive fast because you're not going to be in any bad weather. You're not going to be in any bad wind. It's not dangerous. Because like I said, now you can't go on the other side. If you do, you're going to get in some bad waves. But we're talking 25 miles, 30 miles of fishable water. Tons and tons of creeks, tons and tons of flats. And you can get out there. You can't get out there a long ways out there, but you can go fishing. It's not bad. So that's the only thing. And they're canceling that day only because, no one's ever said this. They've never admitted to this, and that's okay. They don't have to. But I've noticed if it says on the Weather Channel small craft advisory warning, you're not having it. You're not having the tournament. I'm assuming, and this is just me assuming, and I'll admit that I'm assuming, but every time I see that, I'm like, not having a tournament. Because if something happens to somebody and they go back and look at the forecast and it says small craft warning, small craft advisory, and they can show that that's there, some lawyer probably somewhere is like, hey, they made them go out there in a small craft advisory, right? And something happens, someone's going to get sued. They are. And it sucks because, like I said, it's not bad out there. Now, you might choose to go out there and get in some bad stuff, but that's your choice. But it's funny, you can be the one that makes the stupid choice and then sue someone else. So that's what sucks. That's why they're not going. It is because they could take off on Saturday and it be dead calm. They could drive almost the entire lake on one side of the lake and it'd be dead calm the whole way. And so now they have canceled 2 of the days, and now it's a 1-day shoot off. What's the problem with that? Oh man, one, they're trying to make this as fair as possible, but it will not be fair. Not that fishing's ever fair, but it's not. Some people might be happy, some people might be pissed. I usually go out there and I always start off my videos when I'm doing pre-practice and some of these videos when I'm practicing for Toyotas or Opens or anything. And I always tell y'all, I think of this as a 3-day event. I practice for a 3-day event. Not a 1-day event, a 3-day event. I practice for different scenarios. I practice for like more fish, all kinds of things. And I purposely practiced for a way for like this wind to blow in certain directions and find fish that are protected and all these things. And I do that, and I guess I got to stop doing that because I just got to look at the wind and go, if it's going to blow, they're going to cancel it. And so you got guys that purposely went and tried to do that because, and it's probably more the old school guys because they're used to going, but we got to start realizing that we're just not going to have those tournaments now. And you got this, they tried to make it fair where they gave everyone 8 hours. But you still got to realize some people are starting first, right? And they get to be on the water early. Now, I made a video the other day, and actually I think I did it on my private channel. I probably did a little bit on Fish Tips too, where that morning time bite is so critical. For like an hour, that morning bite is insane this time of the year. And so many tournaments go down in the first hour on Rayburn in January and February. Half those guys aren't going to get that. They're not going to get a chance at it. So in a 2 or 3 day event, you're going to get at least 1 day where you're going to get that chance. They're letting people go at 9, staggering them. So the fights are staggered, so everyone gets 8 hours. It's fair. I'm not knocking bass. I'm saying they're trying to do it the right way, as fair as possible. It's just, a buddy of mine called me up and he was like, I'm boat 200. I'm getting out there at 9. 9 o'clock is like when the lull has already happened, and it is a lull for a while. And some guy could probably already win the tournament and the bite shut off by the time you get out there. And so I know it's luck of the draw. I get it, but that's why we always like the 2-day and 3-day deal, or at least you get 1 day this way and the next day the other way. Even if it's a 2-day tournament, you're still getting, even if you don't get the cut the 3rd day, you're still getting a morning bite 1 day and not the next, right? So, like I said, it's just a bad thing. I did get this. I did get some pictures of some boats. And people are always going, the boat thing is hard to bring up with people. that about the small boat and big boat deal and why sometimes we push big boats. I've always been a big boat guy, and there's a reason. I started fishing Rayburn. For 15 years on Rayburn, they didn't hardly have trailer events. You could not just bring your boat to Rayburn and get in these events if it wasn't a big boat, because you had to go out there in this horrible big water. And I fished on Lake Livingston, Rayburn, Toledo Bend. Toyotas were going to Falcon, Texoma, Amstead. We have big lakes. They got really rough, and you couldn't just like bring a 19 footer anywhere you wanted to go. Just part of it. That was just part of it. So we had to you had to have a big boat, a 20, 21 foot boat, or it was going to be bad. It was going to be a little dangerous for you. And so guys now were able to like bring smaller boats, and they were doing that to get back in places and all these other things, whatever. And there were some guys bringing some small boats down here to Rayburn. And I guarantee you, I don't know, but guys were like, that didn't help. That didn't help that like the tour director's looking at that boat going, I can't send you out in that. And they probably couldn't. And I don't know what you do about that, but I'm just sitting here going, yeah, man, like you chose to put yourself in that position. I understand the money thing. People are like, man, you're dogging on the small boat and like, oh, it takes away from this. Man, I get it. But I had to go get a big boat to go fish Rayburn if I wanted to when I was younger. Like we had to get bigger boats, or there were going to be tournaments where like, man, I'm just not going to get to go where I want to go. That happened a lot. It happened more with me for years because I had an older boat and I would tear my boat up. I just dealt with it though. I mean, we went those days. And now I think the tournament director is like, yeah, I can't. And so I think they have a little bit to do with it. Now on the other side, on the fishing side, here's the bad part. When I told you about like how I would practice for an event, I would practice for these things. I talked to so many guys, they're all out there scoping. Even in the Toyota, I did good, and I knew day 3 was going to be tough on everyone, on a lot of those scopers, and it was. A lot of them struggled, and I was like, yeah, if I can make it to day 3, I mean, I can fish a whole different way and catch them. And I made it to day 3 and caught a bigger bag and had one of the bigger bags of the day, and moved way on up. And so, that was part of it, right? I mean, you had to be a little bit creative. You had to think, okay, well, this is going to be my bad day. I got to survive my bad day. And a lot of those guys that just went out there scoping, no matter what, they don't have to survive. Now they get one good, nice day. And I don't know. Fishing should be it should be hard. Fishing should be hard. You should have to make really big decisions. You should have to like battle some days. You should get days where you crack them. And then there's going to be days where you just have to survive and try to make it to the next day. And this tournament did not go that way. The last point I'll say is this, and I've learned this a long time ago because when I was really young, I got caught up in this. Every year they'd come out with schedules, and they would have big tournaments come to Rayburn or big tournaments come to certain lakes. And I used to circle them. And they're like, man, I can't believe you're not fishing this big, giant, expensive circuit because they're going to come to Rayburn or they're going to come to this lake. And I learned a long time ago, I was like, don't ever circle events. Don't ever circle events. For me, it's never worked. And this is why. Everyone's like, why are you not fishing the Open with a chance to go to the Classic? Why are you fishing the Toyota? Well, one, there were some conflicts. Toyotas, if I fish the Opens, they're going to conflict with a bunch of things. And I get to fish the Toyota. There's going to be 2 Toyotas on Rayburn, then 1 on Eufaula. In the Opens, there's only 1. And then I was going to miss the other one, and I'm like, so I'm going to miss 2 Toyotas to fish 1 Open. That doesn't make any sense. And there's an off limits, which I don't mind the off limits, but it was also going to not let us fish the bass chance. There was like 3 events before that. And so I wasn't going to get to fish any of those. And I made a check in all of them except one. And did good in the Toyota. Toyota was a 3-day event. If it had been a 1-day event, say on day 1, I was in 29th place after day 1 in the Toyota. So I moved up every single day because they had multiple days. I'm looking at this event going, 1 day, man, I'd rather have fished 3. I think the longer it goes on, a tournament, the better fisherman rises to the top. So yeah, maybe I would have gone out there and won it. I don't know. I'll put my money on having a 3-day event. But man, going here, yeah, sure glad I fished the Toyota, not the Open. Like I said, I've stopped circling events. Don't do it. It'll get you in trouble. You'll look up and you'll be so excited, and anything can happen. That's what I've realized. A bunch of stuff can happen. For right now, it looks like I've made a really good decision. Like I said, this isn't Bass's fault or anything. It's just the state of fishing we're in. The amount of messages and phone calls I got, I can't repeat most of them. But yeah, it's the state of fishing. It's not even the state of fishing, because I would say, I wrote down it's the state of fishing, and people were like, it ain't the state of fishing, it's the state of like society. And where we're at right now is that you can't send people out there in this wind, and you can't have the tournaments, and all this stuff is changing. It's changing a little bit right before our eyes. Some of us can see it. Others, they're just like, oh, they just kind of whatever. They're going to look up one day. And it's not going to look anything like what it was in the past. And I'm sorry, the past was pretty good. This is the one time, like I always say, man, most things in life get better as as we get older, like things get easier and better. I don't know. Fishing was pretty good 20 years ago. I think we caught them better 20 years ago. I really do. I think it was a lot more fun. And so, I don't know. I don't know what that means. We need to make sure we don't get too far into the future and look up and go, man, but now we can't turn it back. So, I don't know. I hope them boys catch them today. Right now, I'm looking outside. They didn't get sun. I don't know if the sun's coming out. It looks calm. We'll see if they catch them. I'm interested to see what gets weighed in. All right. Stay tuned, guys.